This is the Ministry of Truth. I'm Gordon Comstock, and those who listen to this show, those few of you out there, if you're at all interested in this show, you might want to drop me an email, because I'm in one of those moods. I'm frankly wondering why I'm bothering. And it's a lot of things. Family obligations, dealing with my work, which has been beset with government regulations beyond what a sane person should have to put up with. And then things having to do with the show. Maybe you've noticed that the sound quality on this show is a bit tinny or muffled, and I'm having sound issues, and I'm not a tech guy. I've been pulling my hair out trying to solve it, and I can't. And now the guy who did set me up, my wife Rosemary, her cousin, he's a young guy. He actually does political rap music, and so he knows audio, he knows sound, and he knows a bit about computers, and it's a bit rare. I mean, some guys know audio, some guy knows computers, but that's the tough part, is finding somebody who knows both. Well, this guy does, and I only see him maybe once a year, and if you notice, I came online in January because he helped me get set up last December. Well, I'm going to see him come this December. And if he can't help me deal with this sound issue, then I don't know. I feel like everything I'm doing here is being undermined on the technical side of things as well. So hopefully he can help me. But it's beyond that. There's something else. Maybe you heard on Visigoth's Grassy Knoll, Viz was talking about, he had interviewed Bill Hughes on his second to last week of shows, and a guest, a brother in the faith who has been on Viz's show, and he's been on my show. He's been on my show twice, actually. His response to the information that Bill Hughes laid down, I can understand his response. It was one of a knee-jerk reaction, thinking that this stuff that Samuel Morse wrote about and that Bill Hughes was talking about. The natural response is, this is nuts, this is crazy. That's the natural response to what Chuck Wilcox writes about, to what Eric Phelps writes about. Satan has managed to camouflage what he does. Oh my gosh, Satan has camouflaged the top of his pyramid at the New World Order so well that guys like the Collins brothers cannot get past their cognitive dissonance, their willful ignorance to look at it, to look at the top of the pyramid that Phelps and Wilcox identify and Samuel Morse identified in 1835. And so this guest, two-time guest on my show, one-time guest on Biz's show, I understood where he was at when he expressed this disbelief over what Bill Hughes was saying. But then Viz happened to pass on the email to me, and so I wrote this brother in the faith and told him, look, I know where you're at. Take a look at these books. And I spent $40. I've actually spent more. I spent more than that to find out whether this was true, and it was true. I thought it was nuts too. It proved to be true. And I told him, step back, do your homework. Is it worth spending the $45, whatever, on the Wilcox book to find out if this is true? And then I'll tell you what, I even offered him, I said, look, you won't have to. I'll send you my Wilcox book. I'll send you other books. Matter of fact, this guy, this guest, and I don't want to give his name. I don't want to. He's a good guy. I'm pretty sure still he is. I was more sure before, but I'm still pretty sure he's a good guy. Well, I offered to send him my books because he's a great historian. I have an above-average intellect for history at the expense of some other gifts that the Lord could have given me. But I recognize that. But I recognize that this guy has a better brain for history than I do. And so I was wondering, wow, if this guy could actually research the stuff, the Wilcox stuff and the Phelps stuff. I really wanted to see what this guy could do with it. Well, I sent him 2 emails about this. I sent him an email telling him that I was also doing this series about the Samuel Morse book. He wanted primary source proof about the claims that Bill Hughes was claiming about the Treaty of the Congress of Vienna and the Treaty of Verona. And I told him Samuel Morse is your proof, and I'm actually doing an audio series about it. Well, I'll tell you what, folks, it's been 2-3 weeks now? It's going on a month now. I have not heard from this fellow. He never did write back. And so I am left with the conclusion that he's pulling a Collins Brothers. He is ignoring it. He is slipping into willful ignorance mode. Now, Viz gave him the emails to the various authors, Hughes and Phelps and Wilcox, for this fellow this brother in the faith to contact them and get his proof. I wonder if he did. I hope he has the intellectual integrity to have done that. I mean, he was throwing around that word that Christians use whenever they meet upon someone who simply disagrees with them anymore. They use that very biblical word. They say, let's use a little discernment here. And that's what he used on Viz and myself. We need some discernment. You know what, folks? The word discernment is so overused by Christians anymore. It carries no currency value whatsoever anymore because Christians use it at the drop of a hat. Whenever anybody disagrees with somebody with their own view, Christians will throw this word discernment out. You don't have enough discernment. So I don't use that word anymore. I try not to. Anyway, I feel like, why bother? If this former 2-time guest of mine, great guy, I like him, brother in the faith. But if even he slips into cognitive dissonance / willful ignorance mode, that's what the Bible calls it, willful ignorance. If even he can't look at this stuff and just goes into shutdown mode, then why bother? That tells me how few of you people out there I'm reaching. I don't know. It's really, really disappointing. And that's one thing he probably, I'm sure he doesn't even stop to think, is how he is hurting others by disappointing them. I'm so disappointed in him. Man, oh man. Why bother? Why bother telling people? They just shut down. They won't even look at it. They won't even look at stuff like this. This Samuel Morse book, written in 1835. Well, I'm going to look at it. I'm going to do, what is this, part whatever. It's chapters 9 and 10, put it that way. Let's get into it. Let's get it over with. Here goes. Samuel Morse, chapters 9 and 10, the long-lost, quote-unquote, actually the highly suppressed book from 1835 by Samuel Morse, Foreign Conspiracy Against the Liberties of the United States. Is not the evidence I have exhibited in my previous numbers sufficiently strong to prove to my countrymen the existence of a foreign conspiracy against the liberties of the country? Does the nature of the case admit of stronger evidence, or must we wait for some positive, undisguised acts of oppression before we will believe that we are attacked and in danger? Must we wait for a formal declaration of war? The serpent has already commenced his coil about our limbs, and the lethargy of his poison is creeping over us. Shall we be more sensible of the torpor when it has fastened upon our vitals? The house is on fire. Can we not believe it till the flames have touched our flesh? This goes to the guest I was talking about. Can you not believe it until the flames are touching your flesh? Get out of your willful ignorance mode. Doggone. Is not the enemy already organized in the land? Can we not perceive all around us the evidence of his presence? Have not the wily maneuverings of despotism already commenced? Is he not inveigling our children to his schools? Is he not intriguing with the press? Is he not usurping the police of the country and showing his front in our political councils? Because no foe is on the sea, no hostile armies on our plains. May we sleep securely? Shall we watch only on the outer walls while the sappers and miners of foreign despots are at work under our feet and stealthily advancing beneath the very citadel? Where is that unwearying vigilance with which the eloquent Burke proclaimed to be the characteristic of our fathers, who did not wait to feel oppression, but, quote, augured misgovernment at a distance, and snuffed the approach of tyranny in every tainted breeze, unquote? Are we their sons, and shall we sleep on our posts? We may sleep, but the enemy is awake. That reminds me of the line that Viz quoted so often from the Mediterranean Landscaper. Was that it? The guy said, the scumbags win because the scumbags never sleep. Anyway, we must awake or we are lost. Foundations are attacked, fundamental principles are threatened, interests are put in jeopardy, which throw all the questions which now agitate the councils of the country into the shade. It is liberty itself that is in danger, not the liberty of a single state, nor of the United States, but the liberty of the world. Yes, it is the world that has its anxious eyes upon us. It is the world that cries to us in the agony of its struggles against despotism. The world expects America, Republican America, to do her duty. Our institutions have already withstood many assaults from within and from without, but the war has now assumed a new shape. An effort is now making, that is, to try the moral strength of the Republic. It is not a physical contest on the land or on the water. The issue depends not on the strength of our armies or navies. How then shall we defend ourselves from this subtle attack? Defend yourselves, cries the Austrian papist. You cannot defend yourselves. Your government, in its very nature, is not strong enough to protect you against foreign or domestic conspiracy. You must here take a lesson from legitimate governments. We alone can teach the effectual method of suppressing conspiracies. You say you have a body of conspirators against your liberties, a body of foreigners who are spreading their pernicious heresies through your land and endangering the state. The weakness of republicanism is now manifest. What constitutional or legal provision meets the difficulty? Where are your laws prohibiting Catholics from preaching or teaching their doctrines and erecting their chapels, churches, and schools? Where is your passport system to enable you to know the movements of every man of them in the land? Where is your gens d'armerie, French, your armed police, those useful agents, those domiciliary visits who could ferret out every Catholic, seize and examine his papers, and keep him from further mischief in the dungeons of the state? Where are your laws that can terrify by the penalty of imprisonment any man that dares to utter an opinion against the government? So this is Morse writing as an Austrian papist would be declaring things. Where is your judicious censorship of the press to silence the Catholic journals and stifle any Catholic sentiments in other journals? Where is your index expurgatorius to denounce all unsafe books, that no Catholic book may be printed or admitted into the country? Where is your system of espionage, that no Protestant may read a Catholic publication or express in conversation a single sentiment unfavorable to Protestantism without being overlooked and overheard by some faithful spy and reported to the government? Where are the officers in your post office department for the secret examination of letters? so that even the most confidential correspondence may be purified from dangerous heresy? Where is your secret inquisitorial court for the trial and condemnation of apostate Protestants? Without these changes in the Constitution and laws of your government, you can oppose no efficient obstacle to the success of this conspiracy. And what shall I, Samuel Morse, reply to this consistent papist? The methods he would prescribe have the sanction of successful experiment for some centuries. They are, in sober truth, the very means that Popery employs at this very day in the countries where it is dominant to prevent the spread of opinions contrary to its own dogmas. But are these the methods that commend themselves to American Protestants? Does not such a cumbrous machinery of chains and bolts and bayonets and soldiers to hold the mind in bondage seem rather a dream of the Dark Ages than a real system now in actual operation in the 19th century? Away with Austrian and Popish precedent. American Protestantism is of a different school. It needs none of the aids which are indispensable to the crumbling despotisms of Europe. No soldiers, no restrictive enactments, no index expurgatorius, no inquisition. This war is the war of principles. It is on the open field of free discussion, and the victory is to be won by the exercise of moral energy, by the force of religious and political truth. But still it is a war, and all true patriots must wake to the cry of danger. They must add up and gird themselves for battle. It is no false alarm. Our liberties are in danger. The Philistines are upon us. Their bonds are prepared, and they intend, if they can, to fasten them upon our limbs. We must shake off our lethargy, and like the giant awaking from his sleep, snap these shackles asunder. We are attacked in vulnerable points by foreign enemies to all liberty. We must no longer indulge a quiet complacency in our institutions, as if there were a charm in the simple name of American liberty sufficiently potent to repel all invasion. For what constitutes the life of our justly cherished institutions? Where is the living principle that sustains them? Is it in the air we breathe? Is it in the soil we cultivate? Is our air or our soil more congenial to liberty than the air and soil of Austria or Italy or Spain? No. The life of our institutions, it is a moral and intellectual life. It lies in the culture of the human mind and heart, of the reason and conscience. It is bound up in principles which must be taught by father to son, from generation to generation, with care, with toil, with sacrifice. Hide the Bible for 50 years, and to Samuel Morse, that would be the King James Bible, and parentheses, we will not ask for the 100 years so graciously granted by the autocrat to stifle liberty. End of parentheses. Hide the Bible for 50 years, and let our children be under the guidance of men, whose first exercise upon the youthful mind is to teach that lesson of old school sophistry, which distorts it forever and binds it through life in bonds of error to the dictation of a man whom, in the same exercise of distorted reason, he is persuaded to believe infallible. Let these Jesuit doctors take the place of our Protestant instructors, and where will the political institutions of the country? Where will be the political institutions of the country? 50 years would amply suffice to give the victory to the despotic principle and realize the most sanguine wishes of the tyrants of Europe. The first thing to be done to secure safety is to open our eyes at once to the reality and the extent of the danger. We must not walk on blindly, crying, "All's well." The enemy is in all our borders. He has spread himself through all the land. The ramifications of this foreign plot are everywhere visible to all who will open their eyes. Surprising and unwelcome as is such an announcement, we must hear it and regard it. We must make an immediate, a vigorous, a united, a persevering effort to spread religious and intellectual cultivation through every part of our country. Not a village nor a log hut of the land should be overlooked. Where popery has put darkness, we must put light. Where popery has planted its crosses, its colleges, its churches, its chapels, its nunneries, Protestant patriotism must put side by side college for college, seminary for seminary, church for church. And the money must not be kept back. Does Austria send her tens of thousands to subjugate us to the principles of darkness? We must send our hundreds of thousands, aye, our millions, if necessary, to redeem our children from the double bondage of spiritual and temporal slavery, and to preserve to them American light and liberty. The food of popery is ignorance. Ignorance is the mother of papal devotion. Ignorance is the legitimate prey of popery. But someone here asks, are not the Roman Catholics establishing schools and colleges and seminaries of various kinds in the destitute parts of the land? Are not they also zealous for education? May we not safely assist them in their endeavors to enlighten the ignorant? Enlighten the ignorant? Does popery enlighten the ignorant of Spain, of Portugal, of Italy, of Ireland, of South America, of Canada? What sort of instruction is that in the latter country, for example, which leaves 78,000 out of 87,000 of its grown-up scholars signers of a petition by their mark, unable to write their own names, and many of the remaining signers who write nothing but their names? What sort of light is that which generates darkness? Popery enlighten the ignorant? Popery is the natural enemy of general education. Do you ask for proof? It is overwhelming. Look at the intellectual condition of all the countries where popery is dominant. If popery is in favor of general education, why are the great mass of the people in the papal countries I have named the most ill-informed, mentally degraded beings of all the civilized world, arbitrarily shut out by law from all knowledge but that which makes them slaves to the tyranny of their oppressors? No, look well to it. If popery in this country is professing friendship to general knowledge, it is a feigned alliance. If it pretends to be in favor of educating the poor, it is a false pretense. It is only temporizing. It is conforming for the present from policy to the spirit of Protestantism around it, that it may forge its chains with less suspicion. If it is establishing schools, it is to make them prisons of the youthful intellect of the country. If the papists in Europe are really desirous of enlightening ignorant Americans by establishing schools, let them make their first efforts among their brethren of the same faith in Canada and Mexico. Do our fellow citizens at the South and West ask for schools? And are there not funds and teachers enough in our land of wealth and education to train up our own offspring in the free principles of our own institutions? Or are we indeed so beggared as to be dependent on the charities of the Holy Alliance and the Jesuits of Europe for funds and teachers to educate our youth in what? In the principles of despotism. Forbid it, patriotism. Forbid it, religion. Our own means are sufficient. We have wealth enough and teachers in abundance. We have only to will it with the resolution and the zeal that have so often been shown, whenever great national or moral interests are to be subserved, and every fortress, every core of Austrian darkness would be surrounded. The lighted torches of truth, political and religious, would flash their unwelcome beams into every secret chamber of the enemies of our liberty, and drive these ill-omened birds of a foreign nest to their native hiding place. Chapter 10 of Samuel Morse's 1835 suppressed classic, Foreign Conspiracy Against the Liberties of the United States. In considering the means of counteracting this foreign political conspiracy against our free institutions, I have said that we must awake to the reality and extent of the danger, and rouse ourselves to immediate and rigorous action in spreading religious and intellectual cultivation through the land. This indeed would be effectual, but this remedy is remote in its operation, and is most seriously retarded by the enormous increase of ignorance which is flooding the country by foreign immigration. You should see it now, Sam. While therefore the remote effects of our exertions are still provided for, the pressing exigency of the case seems to require some more immediate efforts to prevent the further spread of the evil. The twofold character of the enemy who is attacking us must be well considered. Popery is doubly opposed, civilly and religiously, to all that is valuable in our free institutions. As a religious system, it is the avowed and common enemy of every other religious sect in the land: the Episcopalian, the Methodist, the Presbyterian, the Baptist, the Quaker, the Unitarian, the Jew, etc., etc., are alike anathematized, are together obstinate heretics. In the creed of the papist, he wages an indiscriminate, uncompromising, exterminating war with all. As a political system, it is opposed to every political party in the country. Popery, in its very nature, is opposed to the genius of our free system, notwithstanding its affected, artful appropriation, in our country only, of the habits and phraseology of democracy. Present policy alone dictates so unnatural an alliance, aye, most unnatural alliance. What? Popery and democracy allied? Despotism and liberty hand in hand? Has the sovereign pontiff in very deed turned Democrat in the United States? Let us look into this incongruous coalition, this solecism in politics, popish democracy. Do popish bishops or priests consult the people? Have the people any voice in ecclesiastical matters? Can the people vote their own taxes, or are they imposed upon them by irresponsible priests? Do the bishops and priests account for the manner in which they spend the people's money? Has Popery here adopted the American principle of responsibility to the people? A responsibility which gives the most insignificant contributor of his money towards any object a right to examine into the manner in which it is dispersed? No. The people account to their priests in all cases, not the priests to the people in any case. What sort of democracy is that where the people have no power and the priests have all by divine right? Let us hear no more of the presumptuous claim of popery to democracy. Popery is the antipodes of democracy. It is the same petty tyrant of the people here as in Europe. And this is the tyranny that hopes to escape detection by assuming the name and adopting the language of democracy. Okay, footnote, and this is a long footnote. The poor, the illiterate, and the working classes, the most deeply interested in quelling riot and disorder. I have elsewhere hinted, says Samuel Morse, at the danger to the stability of our institutions of the mob spirit, which has been manifested in different parts of the country. But I fear that the process of disorganization, the gradual change which frequent riot necessarily works in the nature of government, has not been duly considered by these whom it is most deeply, most vitally concerns. I mean the hard-working, uneducated poor. Let me endeavor to trace this process. What is the proper effect of our democratic republican institutions upon the various classes into which human society must ever be divided? How do they affect the condition of the rich and the poor, the educated and the illiterate? Equality, the only practicable equality, is their result. Not that spurious, visionary equality which would make a forced community of property, but that equality which puts no artificial obstacles in the way of any man's becoming the richest or most learned in the state, which allows every man, without other impediment than the common obstacles of human nature and the equal rights of his neighbor impose, to strive after wealth and knowledge and happiness. True Christian republicanism, by its benevolent and ennobling principles, impels the wealthy and the educated to use their talents for the benefit of the whole community. It prompts to acts of public spirit, to self-sacrifice, and to unwearied effort to lessen the natural obstacles in the way of the poor and uneducated to competence and intellectual character, by affording them both employment and education. The kindness and benevolence thus shown to the poor beget in this class of our citizens industry and mental effort. They feel that they are not like the proscribed of other countries. They see that the way is equally open to all to rise to the same rank of independence in mind and condition, and they consequently are without the exciting causes of envy and ill will and bitterness of feeling towards the wealthy and educated, which exist and produce these fruits in other and arbitrary governments. Society in its two extremes is thus knit together by a mutual confidence and a mutual interest, for causes beyond human control are ever varying the condition of men. He that is rich today may be poor tomorrow, and thus there is a constant interchange, a mingling of ranks, which, like a healthful circulation in the natural body, begets soundness and vigor through the political body. The vicious and voluntary, ignorant being the only portions of society naturally and justly excluded from the benefits of this system. Wow, Sam, you must be rolling in your grave right now as you see America where after the post-Federal Reserve, post-income tax America. Wow. People used to actually have opportunities, huh? That must have been when when de Tocqueville penned Democracy in America. Yeah, it would have been about this time, 1835. My, how things change. Okay, back to Samuel Morse's footnote. Let us now look at the condition of these same classes under an arbitrary government. In Austria, for example, the poor and illiterate are considered as the natural slaves of the wealthy and learned. These classes are perpetually separated by the artificial barrier of hereditary right. The line of separation is... That's what we have in America now. The line of separation is distinctly drawn, and in all that relates to social intercourse, there is an impassable gulf. There may be condescension on the one part, but no elevation on the other. High birth, learning, wealth, and polished manners are on the one side, strengthening the hands of the arbitrary power that sustains them. On the other, low birth, ignorance, poverty, and boorishness, kept down by their intrinsic weakness, generation after generation in irretrievable subjection, the upper classes knowing that their own security is based upon the perpetuity of ignorance and superstition in the lower classes. Now, to make the change from republicanism to absolutism, what means would an arbitrary power like Austria be most likely to devise? Would she not attain her object entirely by the creation, on the one hand, in the wealth and talent of this country, a necessity for employing physical force to hold in subjection the poor and illiterate, and the production, on the other hand, of a class ignorant and unprincipled and turbulent enough to need the very restraints the other class might be compelled to employ? Are there any indications of such a change in this country? You better believe it. We have a daily increasing host of emigrants, a portion of the very class used to foreign servitude abroad. How could Austrian emissaries better serve their imperial master's interests than by keeping these unenlightened men in the same mental darkness in which they existed in the countries from which they came, surrounding them here with a police of priests, and shutting out from them the light which might break in upon them in this land of light, nourishing them for riot and turbulence at political meetings, and for bullying at the polls those of opposite political opinions? And what would be the effect of such a mode of proceedings upon that class who have acquired by lives of honest industry and studious application, wealth and knowledge and political experience? Is not such a course calculated to drive them away from any participation in the politics of the country? And is not such seditious conduct intended to produce this very result? Will not men who have any self-respect, who have any sense of character, turn away and ask with feelings of indignation, where is that intelligent, sober, orderly body of native mechanics and artisans, who once composed the wholesome, substantial democracy of the country, and on whose independence and rough good sense the country could always rely? That well-tried body of their own fellow citizens, accustomed to hear and read patiently and decide discreetly? And when they see them associated with a rude set of priest-governed foreigners, strangers to the order and habits of our institutions, requiting us for their hospitable reception by conduct subversive of the very institutions which make them free men, when they see them become the dupes of the machinations of a foreign despotic power, refusing to be undeceived, and madly rushing to their own destruction, will they not, from motives of self-preservation, be willing to adopt any set of measures, however arbitrary, which will secure society from violence and anarchy, when discussed at priest-guided mobs, shall have alienated the minds of one class of citizens from the other? We have then one of the parties nearly formed, which is necessary for the designs of despotism in accomplishing the subversion of the republic, and the other party is still easier formed. The alienation of feeling in the wealthier class, and their remarks of disgust, may be easily tortured into contempt for the classes below them. And then the natural envy of the poor towards the rich will always furnish occasions to excite to violence. When hostility between these two parties has reached a proper height, the signal from the arch-jugglers in Europe to their assistants here can easily kindle the flames of civil strife. And then comes the dexterous change of systems. Frequent outrage must be quelled by military force. For the public peace must at all events be preserved, and the civil arm will have become too weak, and thus commences an armed police, itself but the precursor of a standing army. And which party will be the sufferer? All experience answers that wealth and talent are more than a match for mere brute force, for the plain reason that they can both purchase and direct it. The rich can pay for their protection, and soldiers belong to those who pay them. The man of talent is wanted to direct, and he also is retained by the rich. What then becomes of the illiterate and laboring poor? Reduced after ineffectual, ill-concerted resistance to the same state of perfect subjection that obtains in the quote-unquote happy Austrian Empire. It is the poor, then, the poor and ignorant, not the rich and learned, that have everything of hope and liberty to lose from the machinations of Austria. In a moral and intelligent democracy, the rich and poor are friends and equals. In a popish despotism, the poor are in abject servitude to the rich. Let the working men, the laboring classes, well consider that their liberty is in danger, and can be preserved only by their encouragement of education and good order. End of footnote. It is this tyranny that is courted and favored at political elections by our politicians of all parties, because it has the advantage of a despotic organization. Footnote. And infidelity, too, it seems, has just learned the secret of political power, and not content with civil and religious liberty, has introduced a third kind, and organizing itself into a new interest, demands to be represented in the state as the advocate of irreligious liberty. End of footnote. How much longer are the feelings of the religious community to be scandalized and their moral sense outraged by the barefaced bargainings for Catholic and infidel votes? Have the religious community no remedy against such outrage? If they have not, if there is not a single point on which they can act together, if the religious denominations of various names can have no understanding on matters of this kind, if they have no common bond to unite them in repelling common enemies, then let us boast no more of religious liberty. What is religious liberty? Is it merely a phrase to round a period in a 4th of July oration? Is it a dazzling sentiment for papists to use in blinding the eyes of the people while they rivet upon them their foreign chains of superstition? Is it a shield to be held before infidels, from behind which they may throw their poisoned shafts at all that is orderly and fair in our civil as well as religious institutions? Or is it that prize above all price, that heaven-descended gift to the world, for which, with its twin sister, we contended in our war for independence, and which we are bound by every duty to ourselves, to our children, to our country, to the world, to guard with the most jealous care? And has it ever occurred to Christians that this duty of guarding religious liberty in a more special manner devolves on them? Who but the religious community appreciate the inestimable value of religious liberty? Are their interests safe in the hands of the infidel who scoffs at all religion and uses his civil liberty to subvert all liberty? Is it safe in the hands of imported radicals and blasphemers? Is it safe in the hands of calculating, selfish, power-seeking politicians? Is it safe in the keeping of Metternich's stipendiaries, the active agents of a foreign despotic power? Does the secular press take care of our religious liberty? Is there a secular journal that has even hinted to its readers the existence of this double conspiracy? The most dangerous politico-religious sect that ever existed, a sect that has been notorious for ages for throwing governments into confusion, is politically at work in our own country under the immediate auspices of the most despotic power in Europe, interested politically and vitally in the destruction of our free institutions. And is any alarm manifested by the secular press? No. Sounds like today nothing's changed. They are altogether silent on this subject. They presume it is only a religious controversy, and they cannot meddle with religious controversies. They must not expose religious imposture, lest they should be called pious. They have no idea of blending church and state. They have a religion of their own, a worship in which the public, they think, feel a more exciting interest. One has a liberty pole to be erected, another a hickory tree, and the rival pretensions to superiority of these wooden gods of their idolatry. It is of the last importance to settle, and the bacchanalian revelry of their consecration must be recorded and blazoned forth in italics and capitals in its minutest particulars. O pole, O tree, thou art the preserver of our liberty. I don't know what he's talking about there. No, if the religious community, in which I mean to include Protestants of every name who profess a religious faith, awake not to the defense of their own rights in the state, if they indulge timidity or jealousy of each other, if they will not come forward boldly and firmly to withstand the encroachments of corruption upon their own rights, the selfish politicians of the factions of the day, and they swarm in the ranks of all parties, will bargain away all that is valuable in the country, civil and religious, to the Pope, to Austria, or to any foreign power that will pay them the price of their treason. We cannot be too often reminded of the double character of the enemy who has gained foothold upon our shores. For although popery is a religious sect, and on this ground claims toleration side by side with other religious sects, yet popery is also a political, a despotic system, which we must repel as altogether incompatible with the existence of freedom. I repeat it, popery is a political, a despotic system, which must be resisted by all true patriots. Is it asked, how can we separate the characters thus combined in one individual? How can we repel the politics of a papist without infringing upon his religious right? I answer that this is a difficulty for papists, not for Protestants, to solve. If papists have made their religion and despotism identical, that is not our fault. Our religion, the Protestant religion, and liberty are identical, and liberty keeps no terms with despotism. American Protestants use no such solecism as religious despotism. Shall political heresy be shielded from all attack because it is connected with a religious creed? Let papists separate their religious faith from their political faith, if they can, and the former shall suffer no political attack from us. But no, the papist cries, I cannot separate them. My religion is so blended with the political system that they must be tolerated or refused together. My whole system is one, and indivisible, unchangeable, infallible. I am conscientious. I cannot separate them. What are we to do in such a case? Are we to surrender our civil and religious liberty to such presumptuous folly? No. Our liberties must be preserved, and we say, and say firmly to the popish bishops and priests among us, give us your declaration of your relation to our civil government. Renounce your foreign allegiance, your allegiance to a foreign sovereign. Let us have your own avowal in an official manifesto that the democratic government under which you here live delights you best. Put your ecclesiastical doings upon as open and popular a footing as the other sects. Open your books to the people, that they may scrutinize your financial matters, that the people, your own people, may know how much they pay to priests, and how the priests expend their money, that the poorest who is taxed from his hard-earned wages for church dues, and the richest who gives his gold to support your extravagant ceremonial, may equally know that their contributions are not misapplied. Come out and declare your opinion on the liberty of the press, on liberty of conscience, and liberty of opinion. Americans demand it. They are waking up. Boy, poor Sam Morse was wrong about this. They have their eyes upon you. Think not the American eagle is asleep. Americans are not Austrians to be hoodwinked by popish tricks. Oh, yeah? This is a call upon you. You will be obliged soon to regard, nor will they be content with partial, obscure avowals of Republican sentiments in your journals by insulated priests or even bishops. The American people will require a more serious testimonial of your opinions on these fundamental political points. You have had convocations of bishops at Baltimore. Let us have, at their next assembling, their sentiments on these vital points. Let us have a document full and explicit, signed by their names, a document that may circulate as well in Austria and Italy as in America. Aye, a document that may be published con permissione in the Diario di Roma, and be circulated to instruct the faithful in the United Church, the church of but one mind, in the sentiments of American democratic bishops on these American principles. Let us see how they will accord with those of His Holiness Pope Gregory XVI in his late encyclical letter. Will popish bishops dare to put forth such a manifesto? No, they dare not. Okay, that was chapters 9 and 10 of the ultra-suppressed 1835 book by American inventor Samuel Morse, entitled Foreign Conspiracy Against the Liberties of the United States.